So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our SBIR Talks webinar series. I'm Misty Madero. I'm with the Office of Technology Partnerships at UC Riverside, and I manage our SBIR STTR Resource Center. Our SBIR Talks Series is organized through our UCR EPIC Small Business Development Center, or EPIC SBDC, and our SBIR STTR Resource Center. Our SBDC provides individualized support to early stage tech entrepreneurs and companies in Southern California to grow their businesses at no cost. Additionally, our Resource Center will help you with the following. We will help you locate funding, understand programs and requirements, connect and communicate with agency program managers. We will connect you with university resources, students, faculty, experts, review and improve proposal drafts, produce a viable commercialization plan, find resources for your company, and build your team and connect to potential partners. If you're interested in learning more about the Resource Center or EPIC SBDC, please email me for more information. This webinar is brought to you today in part and thanks to the SBA and our lead center, Orange County Inland Empire Network. So to start today's program, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Martin Kleckner. He is an EPIC SBDC EIR entrepreneur in residence and our SBIR STTR expert with over 30 years in entrepreneurship. Please welcome Martin.
Misty, thank you very much indeed, and welcome everybody. I recognize lots of names and also excited to see new names, so welcome to everybody. Well, this is a very good SBIR Talks. We have 3 rock stars who have extensive successes in a variety of agencies, both grants and contracts. And if I were to spend time reading to you every one of their credentials, we would exhaust the entire hour, so I won't be able to do that. But let me see if I can give you an overview of our 3 great speakers today, and then we'll flip over to Q&A. By the way, I do have questions, but more importantly, I am hoping that all of you came prepared with your own questions. You probably have a reason for joining us today. So if you have questions, there's a couple of ways to do that, and Misty and I will be alert to any questions that you present on chat. But if you wanted to just ask questions, raise your hand. And we'll recognize you, and you can just ask them yourself, which often works very, very well. So let's start off with an introduction of our great speakers today. First of all is Dr. Matthew Ricard with Globe Biomedical. He is a professor of engineering at California Baptist University, and he is an expert in biomedical engineering and glaucoma technologies. Matt has won $940,000 from the National Science Foundation of recent vintage for both phase 1 and phase 2. And the crux of the work is infusion of eyeglass technology with built-in monitors that tracks and reports remotely on a person's eye pressure readings, which is directly associated with glaucoma. And Matt, by the way, has been a resident of UC Riverside and the city of Riverside's Excite Incubator. Also equally excited to introduce Joshua Morales. Dr. Morales is founding CEO of StarNav. And StarNav produces technologies that converts ambient signals that were really never intended for position, navigation, and timing. And he has won 2 Department of Defense contracts, and we'll distinguish grants versus contracts during the course of our 1 hour today. One was an SBIR contract with the Army Research Labs, and the second one was with Air Force, AFWERX, AFWERX, for alternative positioning technologies during GPS jamming and so forth. He is a PhD from the University of California, Irvine, and he also received his Bachelor's of Science in Engineering from right here at UC Riverside. So he's a local, as everybody is. And equally also important is Dr. Aynun Begum with NeuroBlast GX. And Nero has been kind of busy lately. She has won a grant from the National Science Foundation, also DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agencies, and the Army. And the crux of her work with the NIH is with regard to highly sensitive Alzheimer's blood-based biomarker diagnostics. She's also working on next generation theranostic product for COVID-19. That's funded by the NSF, by the way. And she also has received a grant from the Army Research Lab for a immunoprotective oral supplement for reducing COVID-19 post hyperimmunity, period immune suppression, and so forth. She has also recently submitted and has a pretty good chance of being awarded a grant from the NIH National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Strokes, NINDS, to develop a non-invasive intranasal deliverable nasal a TBI device, TBI here standing for chronic traumatic brain injury and so forth. She is a resident of both the Murrieta Innovation Center and also UC Riverside's multidisciplinary research building here on campus. So welcome to you three, and I know I did you very little justice in just what I conveyed to everybody. So let me ask you first question if I can, and I'll open it up to whoever wants to start first, and then the other two can follow right on thereafter. I was wondering if you could maybe tell us a little bit further about your company and your innovation, and what your key aims are in accomplishing your research and development here. Maybe we could start off, Matt, if you don't mind, with you.
Yeah, no problem. So Globe Biomedical, located right here in Riverside. The idea is right now is for the SBIRs to help us de-risk the technical aspects of it, allow us to have a workable product that we can have sellable, and then launch it. So that's that's really what the SBIR. It can almost get us there. What it does is it gets us so close that we're also attractive for investment. So with investment, a lot of problems kind of tend to go away. So it's getting the product working, close to sellable, so that we can get investment to drive us, and so we can start having sales. We're going to start selling to eye doctors and get the product in patient hands, kind of learn from that initial data, and then grow the company.
Terrific. Thanks, Matt. Joshua, how about your technology?
Sure, Martin, thanks. So StarNav is a startup that develops special navigation receivers to provide reliable positioning when GPS is unavailable. So some of you may be familiar that GPS has its issues in downtown areas, for example, and for the Department of Defense, which is our target customers. There has been several examples where other countries will attack or jam GPS, or actually trick or hack GPS to take over vehicles. So StarNav, specifically what we do is we develop devices that convert ambient radio signals, such as cellular signals, television, or low Earth orbit satellite signals that are all around us, that were never designed for positioning purposes. And these devices that we develop, they convert those signals into information that can be used for positioning. And then these devices can be equipped on vehicles for commercial use or for defense purposes.
Great, thanks, Joshua. And Ainan, you have been very, very busy with your 4 grant initiatives. So what terrible injustice did I do when I was describing your 4 projects? You're on mute, by the way, Ainan. Unmute, Ainan.
Okay.
There we go. Now we're cooking. There we go.
Okay. Thank you very much. You did good introduction, and thank you for it. NeuroBlast GX is very new company startup. So we are just built is the last year, but we are able to have the three grants and contracts. And that's really nice that our focus is next generation theranostic and diagnostic and theranostic product development. That is our main focus. So towards this focus, we actually able to be reached from the Army one of the contract, which is like for the biodegradable nanomaterial based encapsulated oral supplement, and it is mainly focused on the post-COVID-19 immunosuppression prevention. That is something really awesome, that we already have some good results. That we are working with the UC Davis, partnering with the UC Davis, and also Medical University of Southern Carolina. We already find out some of the lipid metabolic marker, and they are really comparable to severe and just non-severe condition of COVID-19, and comparable to the healthy control. So this is something very innovative, that we are working with the biodegradable compound, nanomaterial, and also we are trying to do the encapsulation, and those can modulate some specific pathway and can prevent the COVID-19 post immunosuppression. And also our potential customer is of course DoD, and also DoD recently we got from the DARPA very nice innovative project, and that is our core technology for our company, that human organoid, high throughput human organoid system development. And we are partnered with the excellent two, one is New Microbiome Institute of UCSD. We are partnering, and also Applied Biophysics International. We are partnering with them to making this high throughput organoid system for drug screening, pathogen screening, and that is our core technology. And not to mention the will be make the electroconducting system for the organoid to high throughput screening, and that is something with the EC system, which is Applied Biophysics, and which actually developed by the Dr. Charlie Skies and novel laureate ICOR Xavier. This fantastic collaboration all together bring us some of the good theranostic and diagnostic platform to make, and potentially DoD will be our customer, and also we'll be seeking for outside to get the customer. That's fantastic, which we are doing. And NSF, we recently funded for that genetically engineering dendritic cell for immune therapy for the new and emerging pathogens and viruses. Altogether, that is our goal, and we are working towards it.
Yep, absolutely. Very aggressive and very terrific. Thanks to all three of you for the orientation there. I wanted to ask something that could be challenging, or has been challenging to several of us here in the audiences, and that's how exactly do you select the right project for an SBIR proposal?
Yeah, I'll guess I'll take this one.
You can start, Matt, first. Yeah.
So what I've learned, different agencies can respond differently. So it's always important to call the program officer. But one thing that I've noticed is the SBIRs in general, they're looking for projects that still have some technical risk, but you've maybe de-risked just a tiny bit. So and trying to figure out what that balance is can be kind of tricky. And it's kind of a risk reward. So do you have evidence? Can you create evidence for the potential? Because the more evidence you can create for the potential, make a case, the more I think they're likely to bring on the risk. So I think that's a thing that's interesting. So you got to balance that. I've talked to a lot of people who want to write an SBIR, and they're like, I'm going to get the money because I've already got working prototypes. I just need to scale it up. And I was like, whoa. Generally, SBIRs are looking for research grants where you're going to de-risk and do some real research and learn about something. You might even have to pivot along the way. You have to be open to that.
Mm-hmm. How about Joshua or Ainun? Can you add that? Selecting a right project for an SBIR proposal. Interestingly enough, we were chatting about the Department of Defense funding life science and healthcare initiatives, which to some people may come as a surprise. But what are they looking for, and how did you feel that you needed to position yourselves to meet what they're striving for?
Sure, I'll go ahead and jump in. So the DoD is spread it. The DoD's agency and the SBIR program and STTR program has several branches. They have Army SBIRs, Navy, Air Force, and then you have Special Operations Commands. There's SOCOM solicitations that are asking for proposals. And so you really have a very large set of topics to choose from, and you can find pretty much everything in there. So for us, what was the most important was to really define yourself as a company first and find out what your core tech is and have a good business plan. And then you can go in there and focus on buzzwords that are related to your core tech. So I would say actually you have a huge sea of projects you can choose from. And what's more important for us was to really define our mission as a company first. And then you can boil down a lot of topics to just a few of them. And then I think Matthew said it perfect. Once you have that, you see where you are and you look at those topics and you see where you can hit that sweet spot between you have something, maybe you're close to prototype, you're close to showing them something preliminary, but there's still some research to be done.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add, Ainun?
Yes, so I just wanted to add one thing that which eventually Joshua said that about the core technology, definitely. And here is the one thing need to add, that you have to have expert on it. Whenever you are selecting DoD topics, they want you think about their product, not you are thinking what you are. And also they wanted to see how strongly your expert and your team align with the product they are looking for, and you can do it. That is sort of thing is very important.
Yep. Thanks. And for those of you in the audience, you probably already know this anyway, but if you do not, the National Science Foundation, for example, requires a project pitch in order for them to make a determination in terms of whether or not you may be a fit for what their interests are, and they will respond yay or nay, with an opportunity, by the way, to revise that pitch. And likewise, the Department of Energy has a requisite for a letter of intent. But for anyone who has worked for at least yours truly here, we all do that no matter what, whether they ask for it or not, as a standard of course. I call it the commencement of pollination with program directors and the agency. So it always seems to be a very, very good idea to prepare a statement of aims and a letter of intent, regardless of whether they want it or not. It's a good way for them to and you to begin your alignment and also create and generate a great deal of interest. Interesting enough, at least two of you have contracts versus grants. And Ainun and Joshua, both of you have contracts with the Department of Defense. And I wondered if you could maybe help us understand what is the difference between an SBIR or an STTR grant versus a contract.
I can talk, or if Joshua wants to.
Either one, you're both very welcome to do so.
So grants or contracts are really very big difference. A lot of people doesn't realize that how they are different. So contracts is very strict. They do have like strict, like what you are contracted for exactly you have to do by the contracts. And this is most important, is not flexible. But whenever you talk about the grants, it's a lot flexible. That you can have extension, you can have report once in a year or once in 6 months. But once you go to the contracts, it has to be it has to be by the time that like I have the Army contract, I every month need to be reported. So I can't have extension, so I have to give all the deliverables in time. This is something very important. Payments about the grants based on the budget periods, but whenever you come to the contracts, payments is schedule may be negotiated by contract type, what kind of contracts you are. But whenever you are writing with the grants and contracts most likely to see how your product can be commercialized, how is your end product, and specifically if it is duty, like agency, they wanted to how it would be meet soldier needs and how quick you can make it. That's very important for them. But grants, you have enough time to make your product, and you can think about that little by little, that how you can be progressed. So those kind of things is really important to know before you apply. And more importantly, grant has flexible standard of scope of work, but whenever contest is like more rigid standard of scope of work, so you have to know that.
Yep.
So this kind of basic thing I have to tell. And also about the intellectual property for the grants, you own it, but whenever if government need it for the contract, it would be government property. So those things is come to the attention. So if Joshua like to add something.
I think that was a pretty good coverage of everything. I mean, I think to summarize and maybe touch on the main points that I have would be for both. What's important to remember is both are non-dilutive funding, so that's good. You know, rather you're going to get a grant or a contract, you're going to maintain 100% of your company, and you could spend that money as you proposed. The main difference, as was mentioned, is that the deliverables for a grant are a little more loose compared to a contract. And I would say the other main point here is the way you're paid is sort of tied to your deliverables for a contract, whereas for a grant, you kind of get the lump sum of money. It may be in chunks, but you get it and it's not tied to deliverables. Whereas in a contract, in your actual physical contract, it will define specific milestone dates that you have to hit, and then you send the invoice and get paid. So I would say those are the main two, or the main differences.
Yeah. So the essentials are, with grants, the applicant often defines scope of work, and there is no legally binding agreement. By converse, a contract is indeed a binding agreement, and then follows in accordance with what you had conveyed for us. So hopefully that helps a lot. By the way, let me remind everyone, you are highly encouraged to submit questions anytime as we proceed with our discussion here. You have two options. You can either submit a question in chat down below, or you can wave your hand electronically. I think there's a way to do that. And Misty and I will both be looking for you. Your questions, again, are more important than mine, as far as I'm concerned anyway. So don't hesitate for a second. If there's something that you want to ask, that you want to learn, this is a golden opportunity from three rock stars who have been there and done that. So I understand that applying for an SBIR is no walk in the park. I don't know if that would be the case or not with you three, or maybe it was just, just going down a slide and getting everything done. But all that being said, let me ask you this: were there any key challenges that really caught your attention that the audience we should be maybe prepared for? Was there anything that was confusing? Was there anything that was cruel, inhumane, or just downright mean that you hope you never have to cross paths with again? All bad jokes aside, what were some of the key challenges that you had to confront that we should be, I guess, prepared for?
So a lot of times, as was my case, an inventor gets to the point where they're going to form a company and write an SBIR, maybe even form the company in order to write the SBIR. It happens. It was, in a sense, kind of our case. The two kind of went together. We want a company and we want an SBIR, and together they will work. So when you're an inventor and you go to do that, I mean, chefs can be entrepreneurs, right? Doesn't mean they suddenly know business. So I think it's putting that business hat on. Yeah, you have to have the right technical risk, but you have to put that business hat on. We have to talk to people like you, Martin, to learn, like, how do we have evidence that there's potential there, right? You can't just say, oh, I'm going to sell a bunch. How do you put the evidence there? And one thing that I was already trained, because I had worked at a company that that writes SBIRs quite regularly. So I had worked at a company like that. So I had picked up on a few things in my history, which is imagery. So I spent a lot of time on imagery. Now, I don't know if I would have not gotten it because I didn't have images, but when you go to figure 1, figure 2, I tried to really make those as clear as possible so that it's not just words staring at the person reviewing it. And I think lastly for me, it was finding the right agency. For me, it was the NSF. I have a lot of engineering background. I don't have a lot of peer-reviewed papers compared to maybe other people that might write an SBIR. I came from an industry. I have a lot of patents, but not. I have publications, but not as much as like someone that spent 10 years in an R1 school. And so for the NIH, I think they tend to give a little more push to people that are R1 researchers that are spinouts. And for NSF, I saw really a look for big impact technology, engineering, okay, patents in the history, okay. That's kind of my 2 cents.
Well, sounds like a lot more than 2 cents. Joshua, Ainan, did you have any huge hurdles or great walls that you had to scale in order to get everything submitted and of course get the award?
Sure, I'll chime in here. I'll try to put this into perspective for probably a lot of you that are here, actually. If for me, I could tell you a story. It was 2020. I was just graduating, and I knew I wanted to launch a company and start submitting an SBIR. And if this is your thought right now, or you're just thinking of submitting one, there's a call coming up here in about a month or so. All the agencies are going to start releasing their calls. And if you haven't started forming your company yet and doing all of the legal stuff, you want to get on that right away. So I was in the position where I saw the call coming and I decided I wanted to submit. But then once you look through what you need to do to submit, you'll see that you need to register in something called SAM, which is this is for DoD specifically. The others can chime in and let me know if this is across the other agencies as well, but it's a government system that you have to be registered in order for you to receive awards. And in order to do that, there's a lot of things that you have to have in place properly. And we ran into a few issues. One specific example is that your address, you need to make sure your address is consistent across so many things you enter into the system for your company. If there's any inconsistencies, you will get SAM complaining at you. And we're talking about a registration process and problems that can take weeks to complete. So if you have a proposal due in a month, you could be just in trouble through getting through these logistics. So I would say, start your registration process early and go through all your, get your company in place as soon as possible. That was our biggest hurdle. I think we went over in terms of the submission.
Terrific. And I know that budgets was a mystery to us.
Yes, that's
else?
Exactly. That whenever first time I tried to do budget for the Army project, actually Martin helped me. He's my mentor too, so I'm glad to have him my board time to time get suggestions. So that budget, some of the places, what should be really for the small business, what should be indirect and how to put together, and what some sort of the amount, where should be put better, where should be added. Those kind of questions was really really hard. And that's kind of thing we try to figure out. So something about the accounting system, making taking in place before you submit the grant, I think it's good idea. Then you know your budget better, you know your budget to how to set up. Those things actually help you a lot. So I think that's something I wasn't set up, so that's why I had all those hard time. And also, I since here has the audience, and I would be say one important thing: if somebody wanted to apply the NIH grant, please be aware of it that you wanted to apply quite a long time ago, submission quite a long time ago. You just don't want it to 1-2 days before, which one time happened that I got error, then after was weekend, and then after I was like, okay, I'm going to get reject after all the hard work. So be prepared that you do submission at least 3-4, and if it is 7 days before, that's the best, then you can correct all the errors. And NIH is very strict on their errors. If it is happen after the deadlines, and you they can reject your grant submission. So remember, that is really super important, and that is something I had a hard time, so I learned.
Terrific. Thanks to all three. Brian, thank you very much for your patience, and you are more than welcome to ask the question.
Hi there.
Well, welcome, by the way.
Thank you. I'm Brian. My question is about SBIR and the commitments of people who are submitting letters of support or letters of commitment. And so I just submitted for the last cycle an SBIR to the NIH. And one of the things that we had are, lots of different, hospitals or organizations saying, hey, we like what you're working on. We think it's good. We will definitely support you. And there are like some things that were in there that were like, we'll provide access to X, and, we'll talk to you. We won't hang up on it. A lot of those things were very like kind of handshaky. And I was curious, have you seen people create letters of commitment where, hey, if the SBIR is funded, then we have, written some letter of commitment that we're going to give this amount of money. Like, is that something that's kosher or normal? And just in general, what do you think is some of the best strategy for making the SBIR reviewer board see that, oh, this is a high value application?
I can speak for the DoD SBIRs, and this might hold for the NIH as well. There's typically the letter of support does not bear any commitment to the writer. They're basically saying that they think the technology is a good technology, and if it proves to be feasible after your phase 1, then they are interested to move forward. And it's great to say that it's great if they have statements in there saying how they're going to support the project. Like, as you mentioned, they're going to continue consulting with you for free. And those are value that they're bringing to the project that the reviewer board will see has a lot of weight compared to people that do not have letters of support. So it is very important in general to have support letters versus people that don't. You're probably going to be selected over them. Now, for the commitment part that you're mentioning, typically if they're going to want to show commitment to something, for the DoD, that is something known as like an MOU or a memorandum of understanding, whereas they're actually saying we're going to bring this much money to the project. And if you have that, you can typically go to a direct to phase 2, because if they're basically to the point where they're saying we're going to bring all this money in and develop a prototype with you, then it means they're convinced it's feasible at that point, and you can start to think about submitting to a direct to phase 2.
See, and what scale would be what scale of external investment would justify a phase 2, direct to phase 2, the fast track?
Anytime someone is willing to verbally commit to a project without any money that they're bringing forward. Are you asking about the amount of money that they're bringing forward? Is that the question?
Either what's either the amount of money or like the amount of people involved that you would imagine would be like if it's like, hey, we're gonna give you $1,000, like I imagine that probably is not enough. But what point do you see a tipping point where, oh, that's enough for the review committee to say, oh, that's a good phase 2 fast track?
Yeah, and the dollar amount is weighted according to its size, obviously, but it could be 0, and it doesn't have to be monetary money. Actually, it could be. I can give you a specific example. One of our MOU writers said, we will provide you access to the base to do your testing here and in real base environments. And that holds weight as well. Yep.
Great, thank
But
you.
anywhere from, yeah, the money could be infinite. You know, it could go to millions, or it could be tens of thousands or single thousands, and it holds a lot of weight, but more than someone just saying, yeah, I'm going to support the project.
I see. Cool. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
So Brian, to make a transition into phase 2, a capital commitment is not part of the requirement. As Joshua has indicated, it can be in kind, and as he also indicated, it is not a commitment. It is that the work that you're proposing is laudable, of great interest, will provide great value, and if you achieve your milestones, they will very, very seriously consider using that to solve their own initiatives and so forth. But it isn't, these letters do not need to be confused with a letter of commitment that I will indeed fund you. Letters of commitment can come later down the road as you're completing your final deliverables in phase 2, for example, but not right now. Matt or Aynan, did you have anything else to add to Brian's inquiry here, or?
So about the letter of support, I just wanted to mention just a little bit. If it is the NIH and you are going to get, suppose one expert to make you device or something, you have to mention that you taking consultancy or whatever you are taking, that is you are hourly based payment or what you are paying. If you don't do that, NIH doesn't believe that specific consultant will be helped, because I got a couple of my NIH like that comment from the reviewer. So if you wanted to establish good letter of support, you have to get the that some amount of commitment that you wanted to provide to get the service, if you wanted to get the service. So that kind of letter of support, of course, that NIH wanted to see.
So a couple of things here. I had, I think I mentioned this earlier, I had started with NIH and eventually landed on NSF. And I think in both cases, I'm here today still a little bit confused on what they're looking for support letters. But one thing that was interesting was the NSF, the program officer tends to outrank the reviewers more than I felt like the NIH. So I was able to discuss support letters through both phases with the NSF, and we were successful getting a phase 1 and a phase 2 through the NSF for a health technology that very well could have fit into the NIH and Eye Institute. And then one thing I learned from that was it seemed like different reviewers are just expecting different things from support letters. That's one takeaway. So you're not going to please everybody, maybe. So best to please your program officer as best as possible. And the other big takeaway, and I hadn't thought of this, I really thought this was kind of brilliant. Somebody had given me the idea of, you can only put so many support letters. They have a limit, but you can tell them about more support letters in your proposal. You can even list them out. We also have additional support letters on file if you'd like. That are from company or from this institute X, Y, and Z. And the main point, I think, for at least in my case, was they really are looking for inventors that aren't just really good at selling something on a laptop. Like I can just type away. They want to see that you're talking to people. So when you say I have support letters from 8 different hospitals, and I provided 2 of them, it shows that you're talking to 8 different hospitals. And that, to me, I believe in hindsight, was kind of a big deal.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah, thanks for the great question, Brian. Arash.
I have a quick.
Yeah, no, follow it. Yeah, please.
Oh yeah, it's over, Matthew. So you mentioned that that you had close communications with the directors or the program managers. What do you think was the most valuable thing about talking to them? Like, what do you think was the most important use of your time that you'd scheduled with those program directors? Like, what's really the most important thing to talk about?
It's just kind of putting bumpers up. Like, we're thinking of going this direction. We're thinking of doing these aims. Does that sound right? We're thinking about getting support letters from these people. We're thinking the market size is this, and this is our data to support it. It's just kind of like, they give you some time, but they don't have all the time. So it's just kind of making sure you're looking in the right direction. We found the NIH to be less, I mean, they were very open and honest up front, but then the reviewers were kind of behind the scenes and we couldn't talk to the reviewers, where the NSF program officers were real easy to talk to. And actually it turned out that there was a temporary vacancy for our program officer. So like the boss kind of stepped in. And so he, he's well experienced and has kind of was able to give us a ton of feedback on kind of how, giving us guidance. Yeah.
That's cool.
So Brian, on a very rare occasion, reviewers may actually engage in a conversation early on. There were two teams or clients with whom I had worked where we actually did have reviewers who had taken a very keen interest in the initiative. And so it was an absolutely rare but golden opportunity to learn from the reviewers and heighten the applicants' chances of getting in. But don't hold your breath for that happening. But it can happen periodically. So thank you twice. Thank you, Brian, for those.
Okay, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Arash, thank you very much indeed. Hi. And do you want me to read your question, Arash, or did you want to ask? You're more than welcome either way.
I can ask it. Thanks, Martin. So my question is related more to, that was the SBIR grant that you received. Was that your first source of funding? I don't have the luxury of being actually at a four-year institution, don't have an R01, R21, starting with the primary research. So, was this your first SBIR grant and first external funding? And if so, how much money did you put into this to generate enough data that demonstrated to NIH or NSF or DoD that you've de-risked it enough? I just trying to figure out, how much do you put in your own money into this, and any advice on what experiments to generate to show that you've de-risked it, that even though you have this grand idea. Yeah, that's basically my question.
Open to anybody.
I think I can try to answer this. So the first part was it my first? And the answer is yes. I started writing it right at the end of my studies as a student. So I did leverage some of those studies. So I know this is, you said you weren't in this position, but there's something important to remember here, that there's three main evaluation criteria. One is technical merit of the actual project you're proposing. Two is the technical ability of your team. And three is commercialization potential. So for phase one, the end goal is in a 3 to 6 months phase one is to show that what you're proposing is technically feasible. So, and then at the end of phase one, you should have done that work and shown how executed your stuff in your proposal that you said you were going to do. Now, to do this, you can leverage other people's research. You can go on Scholar or whatever and just put a bunch of citations and talk about it really well, create some figures and put it together and demonstrate it to convince the reviewers. And then find a couple people that are in your startup to add to your key members on the proposal that have some credentials that show some technical backing. And then you do like a market review and you show how that if this product were to come to life, these different agencies are interested in it, and this is the market value right now. And that kind of checks all your boxes. So those are all kind of objective boxes that you can check without putting a lot of money, just some time into it. It's going to take a lot of time, but money, I don't think you're going to need to spend a lot of money at all.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's the time factor, and I think it's some teaser data. Now, I also had the leverage from university data because I'm in a university, and so the project started as internal projects at the university, and I think it helps. But I think usually I think confidence, again, as I go back to getting out there and talking to people and understanding the need. Can you pivot? So if you're focused on one technology, even if the conceptual data is looking really good, if you're not someone that's out there talking to the customer, you'll never be able to pivot and transition to what the customer needs, and they can sniff that out pretty fast. So I have found in my case that the review is, again, looking to see if you're learning about the business, if you're truly learning about the market need and how you're going to address it.
Terrific. Arash, thanks very much for your question. Long time no see, as always. And and we'll see you soon. So thank you very much indeed. And thanks for the questions. Merrick, we have not forgotten you, and welcome. So I can read your question, or you are more than welcome, of course, to ask it yourself. It's entirely your choice. I'll read it. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Are you sure? I mean, I'm happy to open it up to you, whatever you want.
Sure. I guess my question is sort of
Sure.
what happens after the SBIR ends, and do you go for another one, and what is sort of the challenge that you get as you try to seek the other sources of funding?
All right. Matthew, did you want to start? Are you?
No, you go. Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, what happens after the phase 1 ends? Yeah, what challenge?
So after the phase 2 ends as well. What's at the far end of your runway?
Okay. So there is a concept of a phase 3. Now it's important to remember that phase 3 is not funded by the SBIR program at that point. So what phase 3 is actually you have an interested customer at the end. So if at the end of phase 2, you've built a prototype, you've convinced some end customers that the prototype can become an actual product. And now you have customers coming that want to provide contract dollars to you they want to buy 1,000 of those. So you get a $10 million contract to build thousands of these things, whatever they are, and support that for 5 years, let's say. In terms of you have a staff now in your company that's ready to answer calls if they have any problems and send engineers out, or if it's not engineering, if it's something else, then you can extend it. So I think the challenge is that as you approach the end of your phase 2 is to really get a lot of end customers on board that are willing to take your product and move it forward. There's something called, and Matthew, or maybe the others can chime in and if I'm getting this buzzword wrong, but I think they call it like the valley of death or something. And a lot of times what happens with these phase 2 projects is they just end, nobody picks it up, and it's hard to kickstart it back up if you don't get it right away. So I think the challenge is to really hit your commercialization. Do not forget about the commercialization part to keep it going.
Yeah, I was thinking about this answer. I'm trying to speak in general terms because this answer could change quite a bit depending on the type of company. I remember meeting a guy who had a company in San Diego, a med tech, and it was a very challenging med tech and is implant based. And he had several SBIRs over like 10 years and private investment. And he was still trying to get to market. And then there's my case, a pair of glasses, where we're actually, we could really use investment to get our target product to the market. There's some other ways we might be able to get some traction in the market for other diseases, which I can talk more offline. But so I think it's important to look at all of those avenues, push hard for investment, look to see if you could get another SBIR and what would it look like. And then also, is there a way to get some traction revenue, just some sort of revenue through some spin-off product or something? I think it's important to kind of look at all of those. And the real answer is, I really don't know because I have 1 year left. Oh, also NSF has the phase 2B. So if we get $1 million in investment, the NSF will extend our SBIR into phase 2B, giving us 500,000. Up to 500,000 for additional R&D.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot of phase 2 extension proposals that could be submitted to keep your project going, and they do fund matching. So if you get an investor that's willing to come in bring 500,000, then they will put 5,000 more. So those are good points.
And in addition, Merrick, to the matching funds, which is what I was going to bring up as well, up to the $500,000, as Matt had indicated, as you now know very well, there is ICOR at the site level, and then at the national cohort level as well, which is a very, very good seamless transition from SBIR, depending upon the agency. With some agencies, you can apply for ICOR as a precursor. NIH, however, requires that you complete a phase 1 before you participate in their ICOR program. An exceptional way to develop your commercialization, and wink and a nod as you complete those, the chances of you securing early adopters is very, very good. So in addition to NSF, there we have EPIC clients who are moving forward with NASA, moving forward with the NIH and so forth. So there are several ICOR programs that are extremely valuable, and equity-based investors set great store by those, by the way. So excellent opportunity there. Hey, Arun, I don't understand the question. Maybe you could clarify if you're still with us. Your question was, is it through grants.gov? Not certain exactly what you're asking here. Maybe you could help us out.
Yeah, and actually, Dr. Begum told that for submission to the NIH, sometimes you get technical difficulty. My question is it grants.gov or some other site?
So should I give answer?
Yes, I know. Yeah, go right ahead.
So yes, you can have sometimes difficulties. It can have either institute, either grant submission link and account from can arise problem. You can submission through grant.gov, or either you can ERA Commons, which actually assist through you need to submit, but this can come error. Simple example that you did write your title of the your facilities and equipment. You write title very big, and that they can't recognize, and it can come as error. So anything that has to be goes through their rules and regulation. Either you go grant.gov or SEs, however you like to submit, it can occur errors. So that's the reason I mentioned those technical difficulties. If you want it to be overcome, you need to want to submit long ago. Is that something I give your answer correctly? Or you had...
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to know. That when you get the error is coming from where? From the grants.gov server or from the server that you are submitting?
So here is the one interesting thing, that when you submit through the grant.gov, there has like you can able to be look for the grantor errors. One of the link top they do have, and through the grantor, which is your submission agency like NIH, they can be able to be make sure with you the grant.gov that you whether has any more error or not. You can actually select certain certain option through. You can make sure long ago that whether you have any errors or warnings.
Thanks, Anna. And that helps a great deal. We're getting close to the bewitching hour here, where our carriage turns back into a pumpkin here. So I thought that I know that all of you are involved in incubators here in Riverside. Two of you are through the Excite, and I know you are with Marietta Innovation Center, and also with the multidisciplinary research building, doing your research as well. And I was just kind of curious as to how those experiences have worked for you, and how they may have helped you progress through your work.
That's actually an excellent question. If I wanted to jump in there.
Please feel free.
My two research locations. One is, and also physical location is Murrieta Innovation Center. Murrieta Innovation Center is quite nice, where you can able to be have your office space. You can start work. I do have little lab space, and this is running by Chamber of Commerce of Patrick Ellis and Scott, and they are excellent people. So I would like to little bit say about them that whenever I was need NSF letter of support, Scott helped me substantially. Those things really helpful, that how incubator shape your research and help you to get award. And currently my main of the research work is everyday working in the UCR MRB incubator. It is the fantastic incubator, and which is run by David Pearson. He's like all the nice equipment there has. You can able to do all the life science work, and I were able to generate a lot of good data from there. So I can be able to say that incubator, both of the incubators shape my research and able to be achieve my award, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
Thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
My experience with the Excite was amazing. I mean, I had the university, but I needed another location. I needed to be able to focus. In fact, I did a sabbatical and hung out at Excite in downtown Riverside. And the encouragement I got from the other entrepreneurs, and then the SBDC infuses in there, as Martin came, I think, weekly and chatted with me. So that was just huge to get coaching, encouragement, and a desk and some Wi-Fi. that was a huge for a pretty affordable price. So and the Excite board was great as well. So yeah, I'm not sure we would have got this far without Excite.
Yep, same. In addition to having the space here, you have entrepreneurs around you that you can bounce ideas off. And this led us to do the local ICORPS program with UCR. Martin, was there, one of the coaches, good advice, and Steve Sharp, a bunch of others there. These really teach you how to do good customer interviews to find out what the customers are actually looking for in your product. And then those led to, you do a bunch of interviews with these people, and those lead to your letters of support. So keep that in mind when you're talking to those people, when you're doing these programs, is that at the end of the day, you're trying to get some people to support you.
Well, Matt, Joshua, Ainun, we've done it again. Somehow we have made 1 hour seem like 1 minute. You three are phenomenal, and you really do fit the bill as being rock stars in the SBIR STTR field. And we are really grateful that you took up the time to share your knowledge and your experiences with us. And we probably missed you, could have taken another hour or two and
Yes.
it completely. So Misty, why don't I hand the baton back over to you and let you take us through the finish line.
Sure. Yes, I want to reiterate what Martin said. Thank you so much for joining today. I think we could have had a 2-hour session. This information's been invaluable. And I just want to thank everyone for coming today. I put my email in the chat if you have any questions about our resource center. They mentioned about our mentors. We do have 2 incubator spaces, the wet lab and our office space incubators. If you want to find out more information about that, just shoot me an email and I will put you in touch with the people who can help. And so thank you everyone for joining. I will have this recorded session up this week and I will send everybody the link. And then you'll be hearing from me soon about our next SBIR Talks session. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you all. It's been an honor as always and a privilege to meet with all of you. Stay out of trouble, stay safe, don't get arrested, and we'll look forward to speaking with you very soon. Bye for now.